Or they're not letting me do the live thing. They make me type stuff, which is silly. Stupid Facebook. All right.
Yeah, Zuckerberg. God.
So, Hannah,
Hi,
why don't
I'm
you go ahead
Hannah.
and introduce yourself since we've let everybody else do the same.
Apologies for the coworker and the Elena Vavalor playing in the background.
No problem.
I'm Hannah Ehrenreich with Cooperative Federal. I'm the Business Program Navigator, and my role exists to assist businesses and members in our community to gain some of the social capital skills that we all need when we start and run a business. And specifically today, I'm going to be talking about COVID-19 relief funding. And I might be eating a baby. Unclear at this juncture. Okay, there we go. So when I prepared these slides, we were talking about the possibility of having next round funding. Right now we do. We have next round Paycheck Protection Program funding. Ty, did CNY uniforms, did you guys get the first round of funding? You need to stop. Yes, no?
Sometimes he has to grab a call while he's on this sort of thing, so he may not be able to answer right now.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'll continue. So there are a number of different COVID-19 relief programs, as Dallas mentioned. One of the best ways that we have found to get that funding is to be prepared kind of at all times with some of the tips and tricks in this presentation in terms of assembling all your business documentation. And then there's some interesting little quirks of each of these programs that I'll go through. The first thing I really like businesses to do is consider putting together a Love Me binder. This is something that I pulled from my spouse in the military, who always put all of his awards and commendations, all of his new orders in one particular place, and he called it the Love Me binder. It is a gift to your future self. So all these different documents, you should have them in physical form and in digital form. You should know where they are. They should be where you file next year's taxes. They should be the same place where you keep all your bank account statements. And we know that as small business owners, sometimes in the daily crush, things, it's really difficult to keep track. So at least once a year, and now would be a great time, sit down and put together the Love Me binder. What we have found is that each of the programs that you apply for COVID-19 relief will need most, if not all, of these documents. For a DBA, for a sole proprietor, a driver's license, you should have a copy of your ID. What I told Mohammed before he had to get off the call is, if you don't have a scanner, and a lot of us don't, but most of us have a smartphone, getting a scanner app for your phone can truly be life-saving. So I do like Adobe Scan. It's a free app. You put it on your phone. You can then take a picture and it turns it into a PDF. You can do multiple documents. You can put them all into one file. You can email it to folks. Excuse me. There we go. Having your EIN letter, knowing where your New York State filing receipt is. If you're a nonprofit, having your funding letters and your grant awards all in one place. Making sure your 990 filings are all in one place and your key information. Any questions on this?
No questions, but I will say it's always been a great pack, especially for writing grants as well, to have that kind of information together. It's good advice.
When I took over Sustainable Sandhills, I had a key information sheet as well, which basically had everything written out, the passwords to all the major logins, your EIN, your sam.gov, all the different bits and bobs of information that you kind of need to refer to in the running of an organization. That's very helpful as well. But really having all this in one folder where you can access it, it's all in PDF, it's already scanned, well labeled, super helpful and life-saving. And why, right? Because you have to prove that your business exists. Even though you're running it, even though you have a business bank account, even though you've done all these things, when you go for a government program, a grant, or a loan, you still have to prove that your business is real, and only these documents will do. All right, so what we know about COVID-19 relief. At the moment, there is a second round of PPP. There will likely be a third round of PPP. What I am told by our partners in the industry is if right now you haven't, or a business has not applied for a first round of PPP, they should do that now, because they will not be eligible for the third round of PPP as a second round of PPP, if you're following all this, unless you've already gotten at least one round.
So can I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
If I'm a business owner.
Yep.
And I have not applied for PPP at all,
Mm-hmm.
am I applying for the first round, or is that all gone and I'm applying for the second round?
If you're applying, if this is your first application for the funding, you're applying for your first round funding. So
Okay.
PPP has done a first round funding, and this is the second round that they've issued, and they will issue a third. But each individual business, it depends on where you are in your application process. And PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program. It's listed down on the right, third column. The Paycheck Protection Program is a great program for small businesses because it's a forgivable loan. And that means it turns into a grant if you use it correctly. And what do we all love? Grant money that we don't have to justify much to receive. That is this program right here. A lot of the other programs, there have been grants that have come up, mostly private grants. Mostly not, but there. Okay, let me get ahead of myself here. Paycheck Protection Program is a forgivable loan. That's fantastic. Right now, that funding is open. The other funding that's open right now is the Economic Injury Disaster Grant, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL. The EIDL is a loan. It is a very well structured program that the SBA uses for disaster scenarios like hurricanes. It is not, unless you really have the worst luck in the world, forgivable. And nobody wishes for the worst luck in the world. So let's just call that not a forgivable loan. It is a low interest loan. It's not terrible, particularly if you need operating capital now. It is structured more like a traditional business loan. So the documents that you're going to have to provide, and the amount of time that you need to be in business, it's a little more like qualifying for a regular bank loan, the EIDL. Last year, they had something called the EIDL Advance, or the EIDG, which was a grant. Theoretically, that has been reissued. I have not seen any place you can apply for that yet. Frank, have you?
No word yet.
Yeah, so that's a shame, because basically that was up to $10,000, and it seemed like most people that applied for it, most businesses that applied for it, got $1,000 per person on their payroll up to that $10,000, and they did not have to pay that back. So that is something to keep an eye out for in the future. For EIDL and EIDG, you apply directly through the SBA.gov website. The portal was very simple to use. You're going to need your Love Me binder to really get the information that they need and that they want. But it was not a difficult process. And I sat in my office and I helped several people navigate through the portal and get that information in there. But right now, the grant doesn't seem to exist.
It was
So
shockingly easy, and the money just showed up in your account. One day I looked at my bank account.
sometimes without any notification, yes.
I had no paperwork. Yeah.
No paperwork, none whatsoever. And in fact, so for EIDL, EIDG, and the first round of PPP, a lot of times it just kind of appeared and people were a little unclear as to what it was or what they were supposed to use it for or how. Ask those questions if you have any questions about what you need to do on the back end of these things. But yes, that was very confusing and weird. I mentioned other grant programs. Right now, there are none that are currently open, but the Onondaga County Industrial Development Agency had a grant program of up to $10,000. So did SIDA, the Syracuse Industrial Development Agency. Those are good places to check back with on the regular, although usually they do have an article in the newspaper. Sometimes these programs open quickly and close just as fast. So having a little bit of a economic development network or roster can really help in getting in the door with these programs quickly. Cooperative Federal had a grant program funded by the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York. It was also up to $10,000. We had 2 different rounds of it, and it was, again, a phenomenally easy grant to administer. But we are not looking at another round of that, unfortunately, at the moment. So we'll keep you apprised. Then there were private grants. PayPal came up with a grant. Lowe's, Hennessy, Fiserv, Back to Business. These literally sometimes opened on a Wednesday and closed on a Thursday, or opened on a Sunday and closed on a Wednesday. They were very, very quick and very, very fast. And there doesn't seem to be an easy way to get yourself apprised of these. I would just say that if you're part of a specific industry, check back in with your industry partners. So if you are in construction and you have an account at Lowe's, sign up for their email blasts. If you are part of UMIA, right? See if there are other minority and women-owned business enterprises or notification agencies that would kind of send you an email if something like that were to be open up. The PayPal and the Hennessy were specific to Black-owned business, and they were, again, private grants. So the documentation was not onerous. It was just get your application in before they run out of money. That was the challenge. Outside of, and Center State CEO also had a grant program, right? That was also a small grants program, $5,000 or $10,000.
I think that was through KeyBank as well. I think it was a KeyBank grant.
Okay.
And I think it was 10.
Great. So again, having connections or signing up for the email listservs for SIDA, OSIDA, Center State. If you're located in a different county, Oswego or Cayuga or Hamilton also have update emails. It's never a bad thing.
NEDA has business email listserv.
Exactly. Plugging into your resource partners, very helpful with these kind of things. And then there are the loans. So we had talked about EIDL, the New York Forward Loan Fund. That is a program launched out of the state of New York, Empire State Development Corporation. It was originally intended to help businesses who needed funding to change their businesses or provide personal protective equipment, PPE, not to be confused with PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. But we're just going to throw a lot of acronyms at you and make sure you guys can keep up. In order to comply with the New York State quarantine protocols, but still operate. They have expanded that mission somewhat to provide operating capital, but it is a loan. It's a low interest loan, but it's still a loan. So the New York Forward Loan Fund is available, and I think that there's a component now for restaurants. OSIDA had a loan and SIDA had a loan as well, in addition to their grant programs. Those two have both closed. The loans are, again, usually a little more focused on demonstrating that you were solvent before COVID, but that you've been impacted since COVID. They don't really, a number of our economic development agencies want to help businesses through COVID, but they don't really know how to ask you like whether this is a COVID related impact. So a lot of times they are asking for profit and loss statements. Sometimes they're asking for your tax returns. Sometimes it can be a lot of documentation because they're just trying to see whether or not you were actually a functional business beforehand and are now being impacted due to events outside of your control. So that can feel pretty difficult when you're a small business owner. All right, any questions about this?
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
So when you stated that they asking for profit and loss, what are they looking for? I mean, they're looking for what if for a company that is profit during this hard time?
Yeah.
I mean, now they're not qualified?
So for instance, the Paycheck Protection Program for the second round funding, they want to see you had a 25% decrease in gross revenue between one quarter of 2020 and the same quarter of 2019. They're doing a comparative, right? For OSIDA, they want to see your tax returns to make sure that you were profitable or that you had revenue before COVID hit. And instead of asking you, like, how has your business suffered and taking it on, your statement, they want definitive proof that you were functional as a business beforehand. And they don't take into account a lot of times, like, that you moved or different changes location, or we have one business that really has the worst time in the world. They opened the week of the shutdown.
Right here. That's
There
me.
we go. Yes. Well, you're selling masks. That was a great idea.
I saved my life. No, because I'm asking because sometimes
Mhm.
all the people in small business people they ask me the same thing. Okay, well, what number do I show them? If I show them I lost, do they give me money? If I show them I gained, they won't give me my money. So
Oh, no. Yeah. So for the loans that OSIDA and SIDA did, my understanding is that they wanted to know that you were functional before COVID and that you have need, right? So if you were in distress or if you needed to grow, they were awarding those similarly. For OSIDA specifically, they want to support business growth. They want to support your employment. They want to make sure that their tax base stays in, right? So I guess there are very few trick questions here. We had a problem with the original round of PPP where small businesses who took a loss on their taxes routinely were not eligible because they couldn't calculate. There was a difference. The way that they did the metrics for qualification for PPP, you had to have a positive revenue in order to be eligible. Ah, she's squirmy. And what I'm really trying to say is basically they're not trying to catch you up, right? They're not trying to trick you, but they don't really understand what your business looks like until they see it demonstrated in a profit and loss statement.
I appreciate the clarification, but I'm saying, think of when I say this, when I say someone, I'm trying to let you know that the obstacle that I'm dealing with my population here is it's a language barrier.
Mhm.
That's number one. Number two is the trust issues.
Right.
Number three is clarity, because they're not sure what's going on here,
Right.
and they're always thinking someone else getting them.
And COVID-19 funding is kind of a head trip. Andrea and Frank both have run nonprofits. They understand this, right? Most of the time, what we see with people who get funding from the government is that it is incredibly difficult. You have to provide a lot of documentation for backup. If you're going to request funds, show that you spent funds. The COVID-19 funding has been almost exactly the opposite. It's been incredibly low impact in terms of justifying the funding. One of the hardest people that I had to work with to get their loan forgiveness for the first round of PPP was a nonprofit that was used to dealing with federal grants, and they were throwing information at me, and I was just like, they don't want any of this. Stop trying to justify that you spent this money. Just show me your payroll. Because it's counterintuitive. Most of us are very worried that the government's going to come back and say, well, what did you do here? And what did you do here? And if you were a sole proprietor with PPP, literally you had to show that you spent the money on you, right? So we were telling people, mail a check to yourself. Literally set up a bill pay, and every month or every 2 weeks, whatever your normal pay period is, just mail the same amount of money to yourself, deposit it back in your account, and then pay your bills. But then at the end of the process, you can show me that you spent $200 every week on you. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like something the government does not want you to do in terms of backup documentation, right?
Right.
But that is exactly what they didn't have any way to show that a sole proprietor who would ordinarily just take what money they needed to take, right, or had a draw or had a salary, that they were paying themselves otherwise. So, and it didn't help that program's rules continued to change. What did help was that the original round was open to very large businesses and was administered by very large banks, neither of which really wanted the government in their business much and was lobbying very ferociously to make sure that this program was very simple for forgiveness and simple in terms of them being able to keep the money. And that's where a benefit to small business happened for the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. Like I said, with EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, that program's really well established. They didn't do a lot of tweaking in terms of administration. They set up the portal, you put your information in, and they either approved you or they didn't. It was very similar to a regular bank loan process. The only little quirk there was that advance funding that was a grant that they didn't provide you any information about that just kind of showed up in your bank account. These programs are not, they don't feel safe, right? They feel kind of dangerous. You're not really sure what the requirements are going to be to justify this funding. But thus far, the requirements have been very, when they've finalized them, have been very simple.
Thank you.
So I would feel hesitant telling any minority business owner, oh, don't worry about it, right? What I was telling people last year for PPP was, listen, this funding is meant to be forgivable. So let's just figure out what we need to do to justify the forgiveness. But if we can do that, it's going to be very simple. So it was a little bit of a
Well, see,
surfing.
also, my community, you know, majority of my community are nail salons.
Okay.
And I had a conference call like this with Congressman Cackle and his team come up, and they trying to explain everything to them. And after the congressmen get off, they tell me they don't trust it. I don't want to pay the loan back. I don't know how much they're going to charge me interest. I'm not interested.
Mhm.
That's what I get. That's
Yeah.
why when I ask questions, I'm asking thorough because I know what they're coming at me. I want to get an
Absolutely.
answer so I can, you know, justify it. Most of them don't
These-
trust the system. I'll be honest.
100%. Well, and usually the system is not set up to help small businesses, let alone immigrant small businesses, right? It's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be simple to understand. There's a lot of pitfalls. So what I will say is that the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL, and the New York Forward Loan Fund, as well as some of the other ones that have been set forth, have either they're either at 1% to 3.75% in terms of interest. Like those were negotiated rates. So you would not see I have not seen a loan. Let me just put it that way. I have not seen a loan that has been higher than 3.75% in terms of the interest rate. So that was one of the things that the banks, the CDF, the larger CDFIs, and the state and federal agencies were all negotiating among themselves. They were originally going to do zero interest loans. Nobody was interested in administering those, and they settled on somewhere between 3 to 3.75 in terms of usual loan rates. So, and that is if you end up in a non-forgivable situation, right? The PPP ones are the note document says 1%. And most of our people have applied for loan forgiveness well before any cutoff date in terms of their needing to start repayment.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ty, if you have other questions about that too, I'm happy to kind of review or go forward. But let me get through a couple more of these slides to just give you a little more background and basis. But I will say that you know, everyone was playing catch up last year. This year, the programs are a little more well developed. So it's going to be a little smoother in terms of communication. In terms, yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
Sorry, but I wonder if maybe Ty and you and I could sit down separately and talk about maybe the best way to serve the new American community.
Absolutely.
Have a separate
That'd be
meeting.
great. The applications for most of these, yeah. So we've had a range of applications, let's just say. The online SBA portal has been one of the simplest. The PPP application seemed to be simple, but then seemed to want a lot more information that was actually included on the application itself, which
Hannah, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you
My
go.
headphones have been sat on a couple of times. So here we are. All right. Okay. So the range of applications, some of them have been very simple. Some of them have seemed simple, but have then asked for follow-up information. In addition to the documents in the My I Love Me binder, or these should be in the documents in your Love Me binder, these were the things that specifically were needed in any of those applications for the programs we just saw. A business plan, even if it was written 5 years ago. Sometimes they need a business just to show what your business does. A budget and use of funds, right? So what we saw with the OSIDA application is they wanted to know, and they wanted you to prioritize what you wanted to spend the money on, right? Because they couldn't tell from your business operations. If they approved you for a $7,000 HVAC grant, maybe that was your need, or maybe $3,000 for PPP. Hold on one second. All right, I think I still have headphones now. Good. A lot of businesses were so panicked last year that they knew they had a need and they were struggling to articulate it. What do I spend my money on? I mean, I don't know. I got to pay rent. My people are out of work. We got to have masks and plexiglass, and you got to take 10 minutes to sit down and write it out. It's really important to figure out what are your needs and what are the priorities and how much do you think they will cost. You might not get all of that fulfilled by the grant programs, or even the loan programs, but at the very least, you cannot communicate with the lenders and the economic development agencies without that as your guide, the budget and the use of funds. Business documents, again, your Love Me binder. Everything you know, everything you need to show that you are a business and you're in business. For a number of people, they could apply for PPP as independent contractors, as well as so 1099s, right? People who are self-employed. That was a weird little quixotic situation. We found out that Bank of America was not allowing them to apply for PPP because you couldn't open a business bank account at Bank of America as a sole proprietor, as a contractor rather. So there was a bunch of like really random issues. So being a sole proprietor, being a contractor, having your 1099 information, your driver's license, that was kind of it in terms of what you needed. But that was a little bit of a struggle, just making sure that worked out well for people who were applying for some of this funding. Tax returns. The first round of PPP, not many people had their 2019 taxes filed, so they were using 2018. So that was 1A. Why 1B, the first second round of PPP happened over the summer, you needed to have your 2019 taxes filed. That was a big holdup in a number of our businesses. I would recommend this year that businesses file taxes as soon as humanly possible. Right now for PPP, you can either use your 2020 payroll information or your 2019 payroll information. You do not have to already have your 2020 taxes filed. And a personal financial statement. For OSIDA and SIDA, I believe you had to fill out a personal financial statement, which is the same document you'd have to fill out if you were doing a bank loan or a credit union business loan. A personal financial statement, we can send a how-to document. Frank actually probably has one on how to fill that out. It's basically an understanding that you, as the business owner, your assets and your personal credit are going to be connected in some way to this business. And it's showing.
Anna?
Yep.
Interrupt you for a second. We do have a question from Facebook.
Sure.
It might have been a minute ago. So do for-profit healthcare providers and criteria qualify?
I'm sorry, say that again.
It says, do for-profit healthcare provider and criteria qualify? And
Don't understand the question.
you know what? I don't either. Let me get him to clarify.
Okay.
All right, go on.
The personal financial statement. So what assets do you have? What could you use as collateral? Are you already in trouble somewhere else? Like that's the kind of information that's being demonstrated through the personal financial statement. And then another fun thing in the middle of a pandemic, a notarized attestation. So there was actually an exemption passed by the governor that stated that notaries could do notarization digitally, essentially, during last year. But most of the economic development applications required an attestation that you attest that this information is true and accurate, and that they needed to have it notarized. So Cooperative Federal has notaries on staff. A number of other financial institutions do as well. Notaries can be free or low cost. And now, at least as of last year, I think it's still in effect. You can still do notary over Zoom or digitally. You basically drop the documents off to them, or you sign them over a video chat, and then drop the documents off, and they will attest that they witnessed the signature. Be aware. Get to know a notary. Notaries are great. It's like having a car mechanic and a lawyer as your friends. Like these are good people to know. You
Hey.
know? Yeah. Nice notary. There you go.
Notary, you can do remote ones, Taisha, is that true?
Yeah, you can.
So reach out to Nita. You guys got everything covered here. It is good to have a notary in your contact list. All right. So we talked about federal funding and state funding. We talked about very special programs that are specific for COVID-19. There are some businesses who will not qualify for any of those programs. There are some businesses who actually expanded in the last year. All right. There are some businesses who still need operating capital in order to grow or to cover their COVID-19 operations. I will tell you that in my experience at Cooperative Federal, from what I am hearing from other financial institutions, underwriting, which is the assessment of risk in a loan, it's what everybody does, every financial institution does when you turn in your application, when you turn in your personal financial statement. They assess how risky your loan is going to be. Underwriting in these economic conditions is very scary. Terrifying, actually. So a number of financial institutions are taking a much more risk-averse look at business loans. They are becoming more risk-averse in their underwriting. So that being said, if you are going to submit a business loan application, know your weaknesses. Understand that work with institutions that you've already built a relationship with, that you have banked with for a while, if you can. Okay, they are more likely, not guaranteed, but more likely to understand your actual risk rating in terms of being capable of paying the loan back, being a person of good character who will pay the loan back, meeting all the criteria in terms of creditworthiness. Plan for this year. Understand that if in the next 6 months you are going to go for a business loan application, start shoring up your personal credit now. Okay? Run your credit score. Get your free credit report from one of the 3 credit reporting agencies. Correct anything that needs to be corrected. Start thinking about collateral. Start talking to your business partners or your friends or your family in terms of people who might guarantee your loans, be guarantors or co-signatories. Think about if you had to put a certain amount of money down, if you had to cover more than 20% of whatever it was that you're going to purchase in terms of equipment or that you're going to go after in terms of a loan, if you had to cover 50%, where would that money come from? Okay? So plan for 2021. Really sit down and assess what kind of financials you're going to need. And if that's going to be debt financing, how much do you think you could be eligible for, and where is the rest of it coming from? So I said, prepare, use collateral, cash flows, guarantors, cosigners, have your business documents in order, understand what your cash flows are telling as a story. Was there a dip in quarter 2 or quarter 3 of last year? Was that specifically COVID related? Thank you so much. Do you have a contract in hand for the next 6 months? You know, explain it to your financial institution like they want to lend to you, but they're just a little unsure. The more information you provide and the more you have a relationship with them, the less risky it looks to your financial institution to lend to you.
Anna, can I
Go ahead.
ask another question? So if you have a financial institution and they're not very responsive or very supportive, what's the risk in changing financial institutions at this stage?
There's no risk. Set up a new account, deposit money into it, have regular deposits set up. It always looks better to have a somewhat established history of being a member with a financial institution before you put a loan application in, but it's not a requirement. You can open a bank account with or a current account with Cooperative Federal tomorrow and put in an application for a Visa card or for a business loan, and you can come talk to me and we'll walk you through the process. But having a relationship, it's more than just financial institutions trust how a member operates with them more in a lot of ways than they trust a credit bureau's assessment. So again, that relationship is really key. But start a new one, absolutely. And God, don't be in an abusive banking relationship. If you have a financial institution that is not responsive, that they don't like you, that they're not approving your loans, even though you are awesome, get out. Find somebody else who will appreciate you and your wonderful business for all of the good things, okay? Don't stay in that relationship just because, I don't know, you happened to walk in there 5 years ago and open an account. It's not worth it. And ultimately, relationships like that with financial institutions, you learn a lot about them, right? In terms of how they treat you. So start a new one. Find a place that values you. Find a place that meets your ethos. Find a place that changes the world. That business plan that I mentioned a slide or two back, if you're going for a business loan and it has anything to do with new equipment or expansion, show me that you are aware that we are living in a really crazy time. Dust off that business plan and relook at where you're getting your money, who your clients are, how they're finding you. And if any of those things involve them walking in off the street or to your location in Destiny Mall, it doesn't include like plexiglass barriers, masks, remote online sales, I am going to be very skeptical that your numbers are going to be correct, right? Show me that you know you operate in COVID or post-COVID times. That is really incredibly important right now in terms of that risky underwriting assessment. People need to know, the bank, the financial institution needs to know that you have taken into a global pandemic and economic recession into account with your business plan and how you operate. Seems sensible, right? Right? It's like if you were going to open an ice cream shop in the middle of winter, which I happen to think is a fabulous idea, okay? If you are not, in fact, located next to a very popular ice skating rink or at the bottom of a fabulous ski hill, I'm going to wonder who's eating ice cream in the middle of winter. You would have to demonstrate to me that there is demand and that you're going to be able to pay back this loan by selling ice cream only in January every year, right? Same deal with COVID. You know, everything has shifted. A lot of things have shifted in a lot of different ways in terms of how people spend money, how they get money to businesses, who they spend money on, what businesses are getting profits from this. I want to make sure that you are aware of who that is and is that you. So, Cooperative Federal in 2020 distributed $763,000 in the community, 200,000 of which were those federal home loan grants. All right. Again, we opened those pretty quickly. The other thing I should remind people too, in your financial institution, they might have a business email list or things of that nature, make sure you're on it. Make sure your contact information is updated at your financial institution. If they're sending out promotions, if their PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, opened early, which would have been 3 weeks ago, you won't know about it unless your contact information is correct. And that is on most of our members, okay? So make sure that that is updated. We assisted 77 small business owners with technical assistance, which is what I'm providing right now, including 63 minority and women-owned business nonprofits, 6 of which were certified. So we have a great deal of expertise assisting small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and nonprofits, which are, not actually something that a lot of financial institutions really know a lot about, and we are happy to help. Speaking of which, you can contact me here, Hannah Ehrenreich. This is my work number. It forwards to my cell phone. If my email, you can always get me. This program today was sponsored in part by a grant provided by Empire State Development, the CDFI fund, and we are delighted to talk more with anyone who would like to talk with us. There are also a number of small business resources in the community that you should all be aware of. NIDA, number 1. Thank you, Andrea, Taisha, Dallas, Sarah, for hosting today. This was fantastic. The Onondaga SBDC, Frank Cetera, thank you for being here today. Frank, would you like to say anything?
No, I don't need to take up the airwaves, but I would encourage people to use multiple services if they need to and want to. They can take advantage of multiple service providers' resources, and they often, many of them do similar things, but do have unique resources and opportunities as well.
And SBDC has a special assistance right now too for COVID-19 business assistance, right? So
yeah, well, we have our pro bono consulting program right now, which is from COVID funding that we got, and folks can apply to get 5 hours of free consulting from a variety of professionals: marketing, cybersecurity, insurance. What else do we have? Legal, accounting. So, yeah.
it's very helpful. Thank you, Frank. We have partnered with Southside Innovation Center, Syracuse SCORE, which is another mentorship network. As Frank said, there's a lot of different resources, some of which are very specialized and others can help with a broad range of services. Syracuse Financial Empowerment Center is who we absolutely recommend if you are a resident of Syracuse, to talk to you about personal financial budgeting and getting businesses off the ground, getting your own personal credit score in order. WISE Women's Business Center has other programming specific for women-owned businesses. Center State CEO Upstart Business Training Program. There is also both a grant fund and a loan fund attached to that program for startup businesses. We have partnered also with Hamilton Partnership for Community Development if you are in Madison County, and the Upstate Minority Economic Alliance. So Ty, thank you very much for all the work that you guys do. Andrea, would you like to talk about NIDA?
Sure, I would love to talk about NIDA. So I did mention at the beginning, we do community development on the north side of Syracuse, but we help pretty much anyone in the city if they need help. But we're very much focused on the small businesses on the north side. We are expanding our staff. I'll be making a formal announcement about that hopefully later today or tomorrow at the latest. But we're going to have someone dedicated to working with our small business owners and entrepreneurs, providing technical support, more importantly, connecting them to existing community resources that they may not know about or may not know how to access. We are definitely, our website is nehda.org. Our phone numbers are up there, and happy to talk to business owners and help them find what they need. And this was just really great to have so many people come in here. I know the people who are on this call are mostly connectors, community connectors. Ty, I am going to follow up with you and see if you and Hannah and I can sit down. It would be great to make sure we do a better job of connecting with the communities you're so close with. And I'm sure you have a lot of insight for us. Cooperative Federal and NEDA are going to continue to partner on ways we can help small businesses. We'll continue to let you know. If you're not on our e-blast list, why don't you send me a message in Facebook or send me an email. My email is andrea@nehda.org. And we really appreciate you coming today.
Thank you, everybody. Any final questions? Yes.
All righty. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Syracuse, so it's a little nippy out there, but go on out and enjoy it. Get a little vitamin D, and please contact us if we can help.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.